Well, good evening and hello everyone from here from New York. Nice to meet you guys. I have little presentations of regarding our trip to Bouvet, a faraway island that unless you're a ham operator, you probably haven't heard about it. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. I guess you'll have to enable me to share my screen.
Also wait.
Okay, is everybody able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this presentation is about the 3 Yankee 0 Juliet DXpedition to an island called Bouvet. It's a French name, but it actually belongs to Norway. A little bit more about that. This is quite a DXpedition, and it's going to take place. It's going to start on January 6, 2023. So it's a set date of departure, January 6, 2023. I'll give you some interesting facts of our preparations and what it entails to go to such a remote and unhospitable place. You're always going to find more details and pictures and the latest news at our website. So please take a few moments and visit the website when you get the chance. The website is 3yankee0juliet.com. It's basically the call sign of our DXpedition, our team. So first of all, where is Bouvet? Bouvet is a little speck of land in the middle of nowhere. If you look on a map, you're probably not going to find it. So if you really want to look for it, you'll have to use Google Maps or something where you could do a search. But the island is located in the South Atlantic Ocean. It's more or less about 1,600 miles south of Cape Town and about 1,000 miles north of Antarctica. So it's in the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean. It's pretty far from most of the populated area, the large population area. From east coast of United States at about 8,000 miles, and to Europe is more or less the same amount of distance. From the highly ham radio populated areas, Tokyo seems to be the farthest, about 10,000 miles. If you sit down and think about these numbers, it's just unbelievable. And we're actually going to go there to play radio and attempt to contact all these people from far away, all these faraway distances. Well, like I said, it's a Norwegian island discovered by a French explorer. His last name is Bouvet, and that's how the island got its name. He discovered it in the 1700s, but he never actually landed on the island. The Norwegians are first to land, and that's a picture there of the first landing on Bouvet in 1927. So the first Norwegian operation, ham radio operation from Bouvet took place in 1977, and the picture of that operation is shown there at the top right of the screen. Actually, they landed in exactly the same place where we intend to land in January 6 or January 2023. In Norwegian, the name of the island is Bouvetøya, and it's covered 93% by ice and snow. It's quite an unhospitable place. There are in an average about 300 storms a year that hit the island. So considering there are 365 days in a year, chances for us to encounter a storm are pretty high. So we're actually planning and designing all kind of backup plans and what to do in case we're hit by these storms. The temperatures are not going to be very low. They tend to be oscillating around the freezing point, maybe plus minus 5 degrees Celsius. But the biggest enemy for us going there, it's the wind. The gusts of wind can reach close to 100 miles an hour. And this is a serious wind, not necessarily from the point of view of us staying in a tent, but it's from the point of view of keeping all our antennas erect at these type of speeds, wind speeds. So we actually designed our antenna farm in such a way to be able to deal with these type of items and these type of situations, and I'll be talking about this a little bit later on in my presentation. So the island is a volcanic cone shape, and the highest peak is about 780 meters, so it's not very high. And the island is about half the size of Manhattan, not too large, but not too small either. Theoretically, you can walk from one end to the other of the island, but unfortunately, that's only in theory, because practically that's not recommended, because underneath the ice, you could have hidden crevasses, and so that would be very dangerous without having special equipment and highly specialized or skilled people to do so. And that because of that, we don't intend to set up camp on the ice or snow, and we're not intending of installing any antennas on the snow in any way or another. There are 4 DX entities that belong to Norway, and these are also overseas territories of Norway. Um, it's Peter Island, is Jan Mayen, Svalbard, and of course Bouvet. All of them are pretty rare, except maybe for Svalbard, which is pretty easy to reach by plane. But Bouvet cannot be reached by plane. There are no humans there. There's no airport. There's nothing living on the island. There's no trees, no grass, maybe a few lichens. And the only population there, it's a lot of penguins. I think about 15 years ago, and or 15 or 20 years ago, actually, the last count, there were about 5,000 penguins and about 65,000 fur seals on the island. These are large animals, about 5 tons in size. So um, staying away from the marine life and staying away from the ice are actually 2 requirements imposed by to us by the Norwegian Polar Institute, the institution that gave us to the landing permit on Bouvet Island. Why do we want to go there? Well, for ham operators, this DXpedition is this entity is very rare. It's actually the second rarest, most rare DX entity on the club log DX entity list. The only other more rare than Bouvet is a P5 or North Korea, but that's rare for totally different reasons. We will be 13 operators. The team leaders are from Norway, and so there are 4 Norwegians teammates. There are 6 operators from North America, from US, 1 for Puerto Rico, 1 from Canada, and 1 from Germany. It will be an intense trip. The whole trip will take about, on an average, about 45 days. So we'll be away from home for quite a while. The trip will start in South America in the Falkland Islands. The departure date from Port Stanley in the Falkland Islands is January 6th. It will take us 10 to 15 days to get to Bouvet. And then we'll be on the island for 22 days. And then it will take us another 10 to 15 days to sail to Cape Town. So quite a long trip. It will be quite exciting, but we'll be away from home and family and jobs for 45 days approximately. Our goal is to focus on human modes, which is CW and SSB, and but we're also going to be doing FT8. We're going to be doing the so-called SO2R, and I'll explain a little bit later on today. There's some diehard already operator in our team, so we're going to be doing some ready as well. And the goal of our DXpedition is to put on a log at least 200,000 QSOs. It's very hard and very expensive to go to Bouvet, and probably the next DXpedition to Bouvet Island will be maybe 20 years from now. The last DXpedition or the last activation of Bouvet was about 20 years ago. So it will be a challenge, and because of that, we want to ensure that we could put at least 200,000 QSOs in the log. We are supported by a lot of um, organizations around the world, clubs and hams and so forth, and we're thankful for that. How do we get there? To get to Bouvet, we hire the services of a French vessel called Marama. It's a 101 feet oceanic sailing ketch. A ketch is a boat that has two masts, and we're actually going to be sailing. The boat has an engine as well, but we'll be trying to take advantage of the wind and save on fuel, diesel fuel, which the more we save, the cheaper will be for the DXpedition. Our contract says that with the boat says that any fuel not used, although we pay for the fuel up front, if there's any fuel that's not being used, we'll have money returned to the team. But in that part of the world, the wind always blows from west to east. So because of that, we'll have the wind approximately to our back all the time. And that's the reason we started the trip from the Falkland Islands, and then we end up in Cape Town, South Africa. So this way, the wind is always pushing us, and as much as possible, we're going to be sailing. This boat has been doing cold weather sailing expedition all around the world. As a matter of fact, the boat is actually returning from another South Antarctica expedition, not a DXpedition, but a scientific DXpedition. It's going now sailing towards Brazil. Actually, next week, one of our teammates will be in Brazil and will do a final boat inspection. And we will be using that inspection to decide exactly how each and every equipment will be stored on the boat, and a lot of other small details that need to be set with the team, with the boat captain, so that everything will be smooth. These are a few pictures of our boat while the boat is sailing in the polar areas. As you can see, our boat is and the crew is pretty experienced in a cold climate, and we have high confidence that the crew will be an excellent tool for us to achieve our goal of going to Bouvet and operating from Bouvet. The boat captain is also the boat owner, which makes it a very important and exciting point for us as a DXpedition, which means that the boat captain does not have to answer to any other entity that will decide or make decision based on financial goals and not based on the on the um, on the side decisions. In other words, the captain will be able to be flexible based on our requirements. And as a matter of fact, in the written contract, we are guaranteed 22 days of operating on Bouvet. And that's a very exciting part of our operation. We want to make sure that we're not just going to get there, stay there for a week and leave. We need to be able to achieve our 200,000 QSOs in the log. Well, a little bit about the island. If you take a look at this map of Bouvet, you'll see the weather station where the equipment that the Norwegians have installed is located. Unfortunately, by contract, we are not allowed to go and land on that side of the island. And that's because the Norwegians want to protect their expensive equipment located there on the island. And so we have decided to land on a area of the island called Cape Fear, and that's pictured there at the bottom right of the map. Although it doesn't show there on the map, it's the area is not covered by the ice, and we'll see more detailed pictures of that corner of the island. It's and this landing site was not chosen randomly. After a lot of back and forth, the Norwegian Polar Institute, and using a lot of high resolution satellite pictures and talking to a lot of scientists that have been landed to that particular site, and a lot of and a few actually boat captains that been sailing in the area, we decided that that particular landing spot is excellent for our goal. And as I said before, this is exactly the site where the first Norwegian activation of Bouvet Island also landed. So we're confident that this is going to be a good choice for us landing on Bouvet. This is a picture of the exact landing site. To the right is the beach we'll be landing. After landing on the beach, we'll be moving all the equipment to the cliff on the left. Our site will be on the top of that cliff. It's the size of maybe of a football field. This picture is from a few years ago. We have a few detailed picture of the same area, and we can see as the time passes, the ice has been receding, probably because of the global warming, and we expect that the area that not covered by ice will be even larger, to our advantage, basically increasing the size of our of the area we're going to be installing our antennas. That cliff looks pretty tall, but it's actually about 10 to 12 meters in height, and you can actually walk. It's a pretty steep incline, but you can walk with a backpack the top of that cliff, and that's how we will be taking all of our equipment on that camp area. We're also going to be building an A-frame system, a little bit of a crane that will allow us to lift the heavy generators from the landing area to the camp area. A more detailed picture of the exact campsite showing the approximate location of the tents with those yellow marks, as well as arrows pointing to the different continents. So you see Europe is a pretty good shot from our camping area. To the right, I don't know if you can tell very easily from the picture, to the right you have the ocean, and to the left you have the island covered by ice and snow. That's another picture that gives you a better view of our landing area with a small mock-up of how the tents and the our antennas are going to be located. As you can see, we have detailed pictures of the area where we will be camping, and that allowed us to be very precise on where we will be and how we're going to be setting up the antennas. If you take a look at the left, this is exactly detailed approach of our antenna mounting. You see listed there all the beams, our different vertical antennas, as well as the location of the 3 tents in the middle of the camp, the sleeping tent, the social tent, and as well as the radio tent. And those are located in the middle of the camp to minimize the amount of coaxial cable that we have to run to all of these antennas. We also have right next to our camp our 5 generators. These will be diesel generators. So we're going to be using 3.5 kilowatt generators, and we'll have a fifth one as a backup. To the right, you'll see an exact diagram of all the antennas together with their filters and triplexer, multiplexers. Basically, our tri-benders will allow us, using the triplexers from 4 Oscar 3 Alpha, will allow us to have stations running in the same time on the same antenna full power. For example, the tri-bender using the triplexer will allow us to be on 10, 15, and 20 meters. So 3 operators operating on one antenna in the same time. We also have beams pointed in 3 different continents in the same time. We also have a rotatable beam that allow us to adjust based on propagation. We'll have beams pointed to North America, to Europe, to Asia, and like I said, a rotatable beam, all pointing in the same time to different continents, allowing us to take advantage of every possible opportunity so that we increase the number of QSOs in the log. These detailed diagrams are available on our website. If you're curious, you can download them and zoom in and look at all the details and see exactly what our design is. We also have a receive antenna that's ground independent. It's an antenna provided by Lima Zulu 1 Alpha Quebec. It's an antenna that we're currently testing heavily in Norway. This is a receive antenna that allow us to be able to receive and cut off on the interference that might exist between the different stations. We will have 12 different radios operating in the same time on the island. So that could cause quite a bit of interference considering our camp is not bigger than a football field. But the RX antenna, the receive antenna, is located about 250 meters away from the main camp location, allowing us to be able to receive without interference from other stations. Like I said, this is the full diagram that we posted on our website. To the left, you have the 12 stations. We have a station using the K3S aircraft radio. These are well-proven high-performance radios used in a lot of previous DXpeditions. We're confident that these will do the job that we're expecting. And in addition, so these 8 aircraft radios will be used as for CW and SSB. And we're also going to have 4 FT8 dedicated FT8 radios. These are made by their SDR radios, made by a company called Sun SDR. Our goal is for the operators to be able to do the so-called SO2R, which means a single operator, 2 radios. And what that means exactly is each operator operating either SSB or CW could, in the same time, operate 1 or more FT8 radios in the same time. So basically, while I'm running an SSB pile up, I can also run in the same time from my computer the radio that has FT8. So basically, I could add stations in a Fox and Hound queue of the FT8, and as the computer is making FT8 contacts in the Fox and Hound mode, the operator can in the same time operate in CW or SSB. This will allow us to increase the amount of QSOs that each operator can make. You know, a good operator can easily make 3 or 4 QSO a minute, but if you add another maybe 3 to 4 QSOs a minute in FT8, each operator will be able to have or do, you know, 8 or even more QSOs a minute, helping us again reach that goal of 200,000 QSOs. So each aircraft radio will be paired with the expert 1.5 kilowatt amplifier, and each if you look in more detail here on the left, there will be 2 radios and 2 amplifiers per each generator. These power generators are made by Yanmar. These are diesel generators. Like I said, they are up to 3.7 kilowatts. They're based on diesel fuel and not gasoline, because diesel is the same fuel you used on the boat. So, and the containers that store the normal fuel, diesel fuel for the boat, we also will use the same exact fuel for on the island for these generators, making it easier from the point of view of logistic and also safer. Remember, diesel fuel is not flammable, so safety is another main important item that the team leaders and the whole team is thinking when they are designing what will be happening on the island. We have a lot of other accessories in addition to the radio and the expert amplifiers. All our amplifiers on the island are expert amplifiers. Some of them belong to the team members. Some of them are donated by companies like Remote Ham Radio in New York. Others are provided by the Italian company that actually makes these amplifiers in Rome, Italy, the SPE. Um, these amplifiers are very useful because they're very light. They provide 1.5 kilowatt. They have a switching power supply, which means that they are not sensitive to fluctuation in the power voltage. And on top of it all, they also include a tuner, and that's also important in case there are issues with the antenna. Remember that SWR of the antennas could change very easily because of the snow deposits or the icing on the antennas. So having the ability to tune for minimum SWR is an important item that we require, or important feature that we require from our amplifiers. Like I said, that these K3S radios are really high performance. Is actually um, these radios are been tested in many DXpeditions. One of the reasons we like them a lot is because they have a sub receiver. What that means is that an operator can receive signals on both the main antenna and the receive antenna using an interesting feature that these radios provide called diversity. That diversity feature allows the operator to pick up very weak signals, and that's important for us in the expedition because we want to work not only, you know, the big gun stations, which we'll definitely get in the log, but we want to also be able to work the little guy that has a dipole in an attic and only 100 watts power. So considering the distances that we're talking about here, an important feature is diversity, and that's one of the reasons we choose that. We expect very heavy pileups, and as such, the 200 hertz narrow filters on these radios are also important, and we can use the DSP filters to get that narrowed down to close to 50 hertz. They're also very convenient to connect to these radios. You only need a USB cable, the same type of cable that we would use in our homes for a printer. So you don't need any complicated control cables. So that makes it easier logistically wise on preparing these stations for our operation there. Like I said, the XP amplifiers are also important. We're also going to have two 2 kilowatt amplifiers as well. Norway is only allowed to operate, or the operators, ham operators in Norway are only allowed to operate up to 700 watts. But we have gotten approval from the Norway telecom institutions that allowed us to operate full power with the 1.5 kilowatt. So we will take full use of that full power, especially on the low bands and 160 and 80 meters. We intend to be able to add a lot of QSOs in these low bands for the low bands enthusiasts that need the Bouvet and those bands. As I said, these amplifiers are extremely light considering they are small and they have all the features you would like from an amplifier. During our research, we couldn't find an amplifier with all these required features that is only 10 kilograms. So that's the reason we have chosen these amplifiers. They also have a USB port, again, using the same simple control cable, just like people would use at home for their printers, making it easier to configure these amplifiers. To the right there in the picture is one of our donors, the remote hand radio, which donated for the DXpedition 4 of these amplifiers, and we're able to pick them up and send them to Italy for testing to the manufacturer site, and these amplifiers are now on the way to Norway. In addition, we'll have 12 computers. We'll use Windows 10. We have purchased brand new Lenovo IdeaPad laptops. We like these particular models because they have a lot of USB ports. We will need these ports for controlling, one port for controlling the radio, one for controlling the amplifier, and another one for using this CW keyer. So we did need radios that had a lot of USB ports, and these computers did do the job perfectly. We also installed all kind of software on these radios. As a matter of fact, you saw earlier, Rune was joined us earlier for this presentation. He's one of our team leaders and also is in charge of configuring the software on these computers. We'll be using the N1MM logging software, and we'll be using the WSJTX software for the FT8. We also have the Expert SDR software that will control the FT8 radios. You also have RDP remote access software. This will allow a CW operator to access an FT8 computer and radio so that he can do a SO2R operation. We also have some nifty software that allows us to be fully functional in FT8. One of the things that FT8 requires is a very precise clock. When you're home operating FT8, your computer synchronizes clock through the internet with some other sites that do time syncing. But on the island, we will not have internet. So other means of synchronizing the clock will be necessary. And one of those means, it's a GPS unit that connects to a USB port. That unit is pictured there at the bottom right. It's a small little device that allows you to connect to different satellites. You need about 4 satellites in order to lock and get the sync software and lock in the exact time. Considering we're far away from most of the shipping lanes and most of the populated area of Earth, we needed a very sensitive device that not only uses the US satellites, but also uses the European and the Russian GPS satellites. So, for example, this unit, this picture here, the top left, um, if you look at the bottom right, in the blue are the US satellites and the red are European satellites. And this is during this picture of the screenshot of this time synchronous software is taken in New York, where obviously there are quite a few satellites available. We do not expect the unit will see that many satellites while we are on Bouvet, but we're preparing for that. In addition, another piece of software that's interesting to have for us and for any ham is pictured there at the top right. This is a piece of software called JT Sync. What it does, it allows you to coordinate the time of your computer based on the time on everybody else that you're receiving. So in other words, you're telling the computer, I don't care what the real time is. What if you do an average of the time of every station that you're receiving? So the top right there is an example of using this software while I was operating from the 4U1 UN station, where I was, you see there, all the stations there are 0.3 seconds away from my clock. And what I can do is tell the software, hey, synchronize me all those stations. So this way, my time will be the same with the time of everybody else is allowing me to do FT8 contacts very quickly and reliably. So like I said, setting up a station is a very complex endeavor. You need, in addition to the radio, an amplifier, and you need a lot of other devices, a lot of gizmos, and a lot of accessories. I put a few of those here on the screen. At the top left is a CW here, allows you, it's a small nifty device connected to a laptop computer and allows you to have a perfect CW signal coming out of your logging software. We want to minimize the amount of repeats when we operate from there. So that type of gizmo called the WinKeyer allows you to have a very good CW signal. Also, to minimize interference, so we have these boxes pictured there at the bottom left. These basically what they do, they optically separate a USB cable. So because most of our devices are controlled via USB, you run into cases where RF is coming from the radio into your computer, causing unexpected results and malfunction of the software. So if you isolate optically using these devices, the USB cable, you separate it, then you prevent the RF getting into the computer, solving many interference issues. We have these devices for USB cables as well as for the network cables that we'll be using to network our computers. Also, when you set up antennas, you'll need a very good antenna analyzer. And one of our sponsors is Rig Expert. They sponsored us with a lot of their Rig Expert analyzers. These are one of the best antenna analyzers on the market. I think, in my opinion, there's no other better device for the DXpedition, no other better antenna analyzer for the DXpedition. We're very thankful for their support, considering they are a Ukrainian company and they actually sent us these units right before the war started, actually a few days after the war started. So we're really thankful that they were able to help us throughout the expedition, and our thoughts and prayer goes to the team there in Ukraine. The reason we like these antenna analyzers is very simple. You know, when you're in a DXpedition where it could be dark, so you need an an LCD screen that could be seen in the dark. It could also be very bright, so you need some good LCD screen that you can see in the bright outside. You also need a good device that it's waterproof. You know, if it's a little bit drizzling outside, you can't wait until the rain stops or the snow stops. So you have to be able to repair and maintain your equipment even if the weather is not very good. Obviously you're not going to do any work if there's a thunderstorm, but you have to be able to do your work even if it's a little bit raining or humid outside. Also, if you drop this device, you want to make sure that's not going to break. So all these incredible features are packed into these units, and we're helpful to have a few of them available for us on the Bouvet DXpedition. Well, a lot of equipment that we have, almost all the equipment needs to be tested. And our Norwegian team members are having a lot of these antennas and equipment in Norway and testing them into the harsh winter of Norway. Pictured there, two of the team leaders in Norway testing one of the low band antennas. Also, another team member in Norway is testing the tent, one of the tents that we'll be using on our DXpedition, and that's pictured at the bottom right. These tents are made by a Norwegian company that's very familiar with the type of equipment or tents that you need in the harsh environment of polar regions such as Bouvet. They worked with us to adjust the tents in such a way so that they meet our requirements. These are very sturdy tents, and we believe they will be surviving the intense wind that we'll be probably encountering while we're on Bouvet. In addition, we'll be doing our landing on Bouvet Island via Zodiac, and we'll not be using any helicopters. The Zodiac landing will allow us to land even if the weather is not perfect. A helicopter cannot land if it's very foggy. A helicopter cannot land if it's raining too much. So we need to be able to land and avoid some of the issues that the previous the expedition encountered, 3 Yankee 0 Zulu. So one of the testing that's being undergoing in Norway, pictured there at the bottom left in my presentation, is some of the team members in Norway are trying to figure out an easy and safe way of bringing supplies via Zodiac without a human driver from the main boat, Marama, waiting for us in the vicinity of the island to the shores of Bouvet. So by using an unmanned Zodiac landing for our supplies, it allow us to do so in a more safer way, preventing the necessity of a human driver. And these are the type of testing that we're currently undergoing by the team. In addition, because of the harsh weather in Bouvet, you cannot just go in a store and say, I would like this antenna that many people are using and I know it's good. So we've been working with the multiple vendors to provide us modified versions of their antennas that will have sturdier components that will resist the harsh environment on Bouvet. As such, some of our team members like Dave in New Mexico has been testing and redesigning together with DX Engineering our 160 and 80 meter antennas, so they are more reliable and will achieve our goal of making as many QSOs as possible in the low bands. The same applies for the 40 and 30 meter verticals, also provided by DX Engineering, an incredible company that really put a lot of resources, allocate a lot of resources to making sure that our DXpedition is successful from the point of view of technical, the technical equipment that they are providing to us. So these are pictures of the exact antennas being tested on by the different team members, and these are antennas that will actually be traveling the long way to Bouvet. We will have a number of 12 different antennas constantly on the air, and a lot of other additional antennas of backup and antennas that we can raise based on necessity. For example, we will have 4 2-elementary banders pointing to different continents and dual banders, and we'll be able to use these using the 4 Oscar 3 Alpha triplexer and diplexer, so that we operate on multiple bands on the same antenna on the same time, minimizing the amount of antennas that we need. At the same time, antennas for 40 meters, we could do phased verticals for 40 meters and 30 meters. And if the need arises, we can also easily put up inverted V's antennas in case the angle of antennas will be better, or if we encounter interference between stations and so forth. Like I said before, we'll be using the 3.7 kilowatt diesel generators, and 2 different stations and amplifiers will be set up on each generator. We'll have a 5th generator that will probably be for backup and small tasks, maybe for a coffee heater, or a small light for the tents and so forth. The radios doing FT8, the 4 radios doing FT8 will not be using amplifiers. Our main focus will be human modes, like I said before. So we have 8 dedicated stations for CW and SSB, and these will be the ones using most of the power from these generators. Each operator that goes to Bouvet, each team member has to contribute $20,000 towards the budget of the DXpedition. The budget is $690,000. It's a huge budget, and if successful, this DXpedition will be the most expensive ever. And this is to be expected because getting to Bouvet is very expensive, and also it will be the largest DXpedition to Bouvet ever. No, actually only one other DXpedition was to Bouvet, and that only had 4 or 5 members from what I remember. But we will have 13 operators, and that's quite an endeavor. Organizations have helped us quite a bit to get to this to meet this budget. Currently, we are close to 83%, so we're almost there, and that proves that a lot of clubs and ham operators around the world understand the need to support these DXpeditions. The interesting fact is that to go to some of these DXpeditions, you need to actually to have the money up front, because you need to pay for the boat. Most of this money that we are raising, I think approximately $550,000 goes towards paying the boat. So the expenses of the expedition are very small compared to the amount of money that goes towards the boat, the crew, and the fuel that allows us to get to Bouvet. So that's the largest expense. Organizations such as NCDXF donated $100,000. Indexa made their largest donation ever of $15,000, and a lot of clubs and hams, just people that really want us to succeed, donated anything from $5 to $5,000. Actually, we even have sponsors that donated $10,000, private sponsors. So, one thing that you have to understand is that you can never ever get to these type of locations unless you have equipment sponsors. If you have to buy with the money that you have, if you have to buy equipment, then you can never raise enough money to reach these places. Like I said, most of the money that you raise as a DXpedition will go towards the boat. There's no way you can cut off on that. You cannot go there with less fuel or less water or less crew, or a boat that cannot get there. So there's no way you can cut expenses on that type of expense. So equipment sponsors such as DX Engineering that provided us our largest equipment donor, actually, they provide us so much of the equipment that it's just unbelievable. Innova Antenna and Wemo, a German company. Actually, Innova Antenna is a British company, and Wemo is their distributor in Germany. Actually, they're the largest ham radio store in Europe. So these two companies work together to provide us the beams. Like I said, we have these modified beams that allow us to be confident that in the heavy winds of Bouvet, these antennas will actually stay erect. We also worked with the Greek manufacturer called Silcom. They provided us some very sturdy masts that have a square profile with a very thick aluminum wall that, again, they were calculated and tested in high winds to make us confident that these antennas will actually going to be able to survive the heavy winds on Bouvet. If the wind is 20, 30 miles an hour, we're not going to have a problem. If the wind reaches 50 miles an hour, we will start, we'll be at the edge of what our equipment can endure. But what happens is these masts allow us to lower the antennas, which are normally high up about 10 to 12 meters, and we can lower them to maybe 5 or 6 meters, allowing us to operate even if the wind goes beyond 60 miles an hour and even close to 100 miles an hour. So these are important details that you have to take into account when you go to these destinations. Like I said, the 4 Oscar 3 Alpha donated most of the filters. They are known for the impressive filters that they provide, high power and good quality. Expert amplifiers, we said that we're using only their amplifiers. Another item that was actually, we had to spend a lot of time thinking about is the coaxial cable. You might say, well, just go get coaxial cable to put it in, connect the antenna. It's not a big deal. But will the cable actually survive in the environment of Bouvet? What happens at minus 10 degrees Celsius? Will the cable be flexible? Well, it will be brittle and will break. What if the cable is not waterproof? What if the cable is chewed by some of the animals that, penguins or fur seals or whatever? Is the cable too heavy to lift or carry around? So all these considerants will have to be taken into account. So we worked with this Italian company that makes this very impressive cable called Messi and Paloni. They have this product called Airfoil 10, I think it's called, and they basically, what they do is they work with us and they deliver to us almost over 1 kilometer of coaxial cable. That's quite of an impressive, support from a company to donate all this cable, or the connectors and everything in place. Remember, we calculated exactly the amount of cable we need because we have detailed pictures of the site that we're landing. So we're able to decide where each and every antenna goes to minimize interference, to minimize the amount of cable that we're using and so forth. So this Italian company provided this cable to us. Also, Spiderbeam, the German company that makes these flexible fiberglass poles, they guaranteed to us that these poles will resist, if properly installed, they will resist the high winds on Bouvet, and then we're confident that we're able to use their products on Bouvet for our vertical antennas. And especially we have 160 and 80 meter antennas, both built from aluminum tubes, but also fiber glass, and to ensure that in a way or another we'll be able to operate on the low bands. And of course, company like Remote Ham Radio that donated 4 amplifiers, quite an impressive um, donation, considering that if we had to buy these amplifiers, 4 amplifiers are close to $20,000. So, it's a lot of money that we saved, and we're thankful for companies like that. There's some of the logos of the different companies that helped us. And, I can talk about our preparations a lot. Like I said before, sometimes preparing for the expedition like this is like a second job. Each and every team member has multiple tasks that have to be achieved, and the team is meeting in 2 weeks in somewhere outside Oslo, where we'll be testing all this equipment. We'll be making like a mock-up site with the exact equipment, testing everything, labeling and packing everything in a container. And this container will be going this summer to South America, where it will be loaded on our boat, so that on January 6, 2023, we can leave Falkland Islands for this amazing DXpedition to the most remote uninhabited island on Earth, Bouvet Island. So I'll open up for questions. Anything I'm happy to answer, and I'll be, here for any thoughts or other comments you might be interested in.
Hello there, Jonathan M0VRI. Can I go first?
Sure, go ahead.
Excellent, thank you. So you're using a sailing ketch to get there and to get on to Cape Town. Very environmentally friendly, excellent. Really impressed to see that. Did you consider either supplementing your power or even generating power from solar and wind, bearing in mind where you are?
Unfortunately, I mean, we have thought about that, but unfortunately, the solar panels, the size of the solar panels necessary to generate the amount of power that we need for our amplifiers, it's so large that it's just not feasible to transport these solar panel or wind equipment onto the island. It raises quite a complicated question. For example, we have plenty of wind. That would be so great. You just bring a wind generator, and that could give you free power. You got plenty of wind. All you have to do is keep the equipment erect. But to keep that kind of equipment erect on the island, consider amount of wind, and our expertise is not
Sure.
as such that you need very heavy equipment to put such kind of equipment to generate the amount of power. I mean, you can generate some power so you could light up your tents, or maybe even, I don't know, heat up some coffee. But when you put there's a trade-off. So you say to yourself, if I'm carrying maybe, I don't know, 50 kilos of extra equipment to generate power that will only light up a few light bulbs, it just doesn't make sense, considering we're only going to be there for 3 weeks. So
I get it.
Unfortunately not possible, but it'll be such a cool thing that will feel. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you. I've got some more questions, but
Sure, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You sure? Okay. So in your risk assessment and planning for everything, what are you going to do if you have a medical emergency?
Well, our team, 2 of our operators are actually emergency doctors. That's what they do for a living. So we have 2 doctors in a team, and actually a 3rd operator, Otis from Puerto Rico. He's a dentist. Hopefully we're not going to need his services, but well, actually what happens is, in these remote places, countries that actually own these territories, like Norway in this case, they will not give you a permission to land unless you have at least a doctor in your team. So it's part of your requirements to get a lending permit. So we don't have one doctor, but we have two doctors, Bill and Mike. So they are in charge of figuring out multiple things. What do you do in case of an emergency, of this type of emergency, or that type of emergency? They also are designing our food intake, water intake, emergency rations. What happens if we get stuck on the island beyond 22 days? What happens if there's an issue with the water? What happens if there's an issue with the food? What type of food should we get? Of course we want to have steak and chips all every day, but that's not going to cut it. We'll have to, because there's a trade-off between the weight and the protein intake that you need, that your body needs to survive there. You also need food that you can prepare with the minimum use of energy. If you spend too much energy cooking your meals, then that type of fuel will be less for your generators that are used for the amplifiers that make QSOs. So a lot of complex logistics that the two doctors are in charge of resolving and coming up with the best approach.
Thank you. I've now got a technical question you'll be pleased to hear.
Okay.
Earthing arrangements. So what are you doing about earthing your equipment in terms of, for the verticals? Presumably you've got radials or counterpoises. How does all that work?
We have discussed with the scientists at the Norwegian Polar Institute, the institution that's in charge of this island and some other Norwegian territories. We were interested to see what type of soil we have there. So based on their input and other people that were on the island, in particular in that area that we're landing, we learned the type of soil. So we're prepared to bring grounding rods. Also, we have obviously a lot of anchors that we're bringing to use as anchors for our antennas, for the tents, for the, even for your toilet, for everything that actually has to stay put. And we are prepared for multiple type of soils as well. We're actually going to bring tools to drill into the rock and use anchors based on that type of environment. We also have anchors and grounding rods that we can just hammer into the ground that we can use for the verticals and so forth. Actually, one of the things that I have to mention is that there's a requirement, again, part of the lending permit, that whatever we bring on the island, we have to take back. So that increased our difficulties, logistic-wise, when it comes to these grounding rods and anchors, because when we leave the island, we have to actually take these out and bring them back to the boat. So we did a lot of research and testing in Arizona. One of our team members was in charge of figuring out ways to drill into the rock, put anchors, make sure they're sturdy enough, and then when we're done with them, we can take those anchors out and leave with them leave the island with the...
Excellent. Can I have another one?
Sure, that's why we're here.
So these generators, generators typically produce quite a bit of noise on their output. What sort of filtering are you having to put on the on your power supply to clean that up?
We have researched the different generators, and for gasoline, the best generators are the Hondas. Everybody knows that, and all the expeditions are using those. And when we say the best, they all make power, is how clean their output is. So that's why they're so loved. But we'll be using fuel, Yanmar, with diesel fuel, and Yanmar is the leader of diesel generators. They actually make quite a few engines for the boats out there. Most of the boats out there small and medium-sized boats use Yanmar engines, and also Yanmar wind generators, all kind of generators. So these people are really experts in their field. We worked, and one of our team members has spent a lot of time talking to the Yanmar team and explain what we need. And they actually guarantee that the quality of output from these generators is really good. And that's how we decided to use this particular model of the Yanmar generators. Also, keep in mind that most of our equipment uses switching power supplies. You know, the radios, the amplifiers, every equipment that is prone to noises are using switching power supplies, minimizing the amount of noise, power noise that gets into the equipment. Also, if you take a look of zoom in on our system diagram, you'll see that all over the our system we have ferrites that also will significantly decrease the amount of noise getting into our system, power noise or RF noise.
Okay. One final one, if I may, and then I'll really
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So these tents, they look very impressive. Are they penguin proof?
What does that mean, penguin proof?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Are penguins aggressive? If some penguins decide to try and get in your tent to get some food.
Okay, so again, one of the contract's requirement or for the lending permit was we have to camp in a place where we are away from the marine life, from the life on the island. So what that means is that instead of conveniently putting our tents onto the landing site on the beach, we decide, or we had to actually put our campsite above that cliff that I showed you earlier in the pictures. One of the reasons for doing so, in addition, you know, for the advantage of the antenna being high above the saltwater, is because it will prevent of any of these seals and penguins from coming to our site. So there's no way for these creatures to come up to our site. If they are coming to our site, we have one of those devices that make a lot of noises to keep away these seals. We used them successfully and prior the expedition. I was actually a few years ago on an expedition on a rock on the Pacific Ocean, somewhere close to the Oregon shore. And on this IOTA, the expedition, we had a lot of seals coming out to our antennas. So every half an hour or so, we'll make some noises for 10-15 seconds, and they will stay away from us. And
Brilliant.
so we'll take probably the same approach, but us being high up onto the ridge prevents all those animals from getting close to the tents. Obviously, the tents are made of heavy cloth. No animal can get through, but we don't expect to have any issues from that point of view.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Adrian, I think you're going to look very fetching with a beard.
I could. I was looking into getting one of those electrical razors, which I don't like too much. And somebody's telling me, why would you want to shave yourself? Shave your beard when you're on the island. That actually keeps you warm. So then I was thinking, you know what? That sounds like a good idea. So,
And it looks manly.
What?
And it looks manly.
Yeah. I'll be looking more aggressive in the pictures. I'd be more convincing that we did a difficult job there. Maybe we'll look even better. Everybody with a beard. And the last day before leaving, we should all take a picture before and after. And that will be something cool to post on the website.
Brilliant.
Peter G3 MLO, thanks Adrian for a very informative talk, and I wanted to make the point. I mean, I've been an amateur for over 60 years, and basically, I've not worked Bouvet. We worked Peter the First and places like Scarborough Reef, and we know some of the difficulties, or seen some of the difficulties in activating those particular locations. But I mean, Bouvet is a particularly very, very difficult one. And this is why it's so high in the list of wanted. But it goes to show that amateurs can raise the sort of funds to actually help these expeditions. But we need people like you and Yokuro. But also, you got to, as amateurs, we've got to think about future and what is going to be the opportunity to actually operate from some of these regions, because they are so horrendously expensive to get to. I'm thinking of Peter the First Island, which I believe the last DXpedition there, they had to take insulated buildings, they had to build huts there, from my memory, to actually operate from there. And Scarborough Reef, where you're pitched on a bit of rock and building a platform to operate, these sort of efforts, we have to, as amateurs, really support these sort of expeditions, because they're going to be few and far between, in my opinion. And you've got to grab it whilst it's there. So I wish you every success. I hope I can get my call sign in the log, and I shall be subscribing, as I have done for the attempted, I think, 2 other expeditions that failed. But you're close to your target, but so I should be adding to it, Adrian.
Well, I agree. It's it's amazing that technology improves so much, and theoretically it becomes easier and easier to get to all these remote places. But unfortunately, it becomes more expensive, in the sense that we had to almost cancel the expedition when Braveheart was not available anymore. So then we searched very hard. There were a lot of actually boats that were willing to take us, no problem. But none of them, talked of numbers less than 1 million. I said, there's just no way you can raise that kind of money, even if you wanted to. And the thing is, it's the price that now makes it difficult to get to these locations. If you had the money, $10 million to put it down, you can just get a fancy boat, takes you there, do whatever, and come back. But indeed, becomes more difficult because of that. Scarborough and P5 and others are difficult for different reasons. It's hard to get there because you can't get permission to get there. On Bouvet, if you prove that you know what you're doing, they will give you a permit to land. But proving that you know what you're doing is expensive. You have to say, okay, I'm going with this boat. Are these people know what they're doing? Have they done anything like that before? Things like that. So you can't just go and ask for permission and not know what you're doing. It is what it is. There's always a challenge. I guess that's why it's interesting. If it wasn't a challenge, then it wouldn't be interesting. If you had to work, if your goal was to work just all the European countries, you will say, well, I could do that in a contest. I don't need a lifetime. But that's why it's challenging. China was a difficult one for many, many years. Albania was a difficult one for many, many years. And then all of a sudden, you waited 20 years and boom, look at that. You can now work them. So I'm confident that, things are dynamic, things are changing. We had a ham on Afghanistan for many years, located there, and he was operating all the time. And Afghanistan was not a rare one anymore. And now he's gone, things have changed there, and that's going to be a tough one to get. If you just started ham radio tomorrow, you'll see that this is one of those that you're going to have to wait maybe 20 years. So it's the same thing. Some of them are hard because of getting a license. Some of them are hard because of the money. one thing about Pier 1, which will probably be activated soon enough, I believe. I know at least a few groups that are preparing or trying to get permission. You know, Pier 1 is very close to a lot of scientific camps, let's say, in Antarctica. So basically, you can hitch a ride with somebody else that goes there. But problem is, nobody goes to Bouvet. There's nothing for thousands of miles. There's, you know, you can't say I'm going to Cape Town. I'm going to stop by in Bouvet. You can say, you know, I'm going to Cape Town. I'm going to stop by in Helen Island or some other islands in the way there. But Bouvet, you can't say that. So that's why it's very hard to get there. Your boat has to specifically go there. And another requirement is from Norwegian government is that the boat that takes you there has to wait for you, you know, in the vicinity of the island. They cannot leave you there and go like it used to be, you know, 30, 40 years ago. There are a lot of boats going somewhere and they say, okay, let's stop by, you know, let's make a little bit of a, you know, stop over on Bouvet. And we come back, you know, pick you guys up a few weeks later. And that's what used to happen with the French island, the hard ones to get, Crozet and all the other ones. But with Bouvet again, that's not possible. Things have changed, you know. 30 years ago, countries did not require all these difficult items. You need now a lot of insurance, you know. You know, people will say that 50 years ago, you just go on a boat, and if you're crazy enough to go to some island and operate from there, good for you. Maybe take a couple of pictures and come back. Today, you can't just go on these islands. You need permission. So
Yeah, I can, you know, I can see the problems. My thoughts go back to the days of Andy Wheel and Yasmi and all of the things that went on there. I mean, this makes interesting reading indeed, and things were a lot more relaxed. And you know, I think Danny wrecked about 3 boats or whatever, and still kept going. He seemed to be able to raise money to find a boat, but you know, things have moved on, as you say, and rightly so. I think they were a bit dodgy, some of the contacts that were made during those days. But
yeah,
there we go.
that's true. But you know, I was on a DXpedition, let's say, to Virgin Islands to commemorate Danny's you know achievements, let's say. So I read a lot about the Yasme and the Danny's achievement, and he also had a tough time raising money, but he also had a lot less expenses, you know, for him to go to some faraway island, you know, like this Mexican island that's now very hard to get to. What is it? I can never pronounce it. Anyway, it's one of these entities of Mexico, and it's today there's a military installation there. So to get there, it'll take you 5 years of bigging, and you know, it's not going to happen. Danny just went there, and he had a lot of problems, you know, water and the radio. And then he went on the shore, put the radio in the sun, the water evaporated, and you know, a few hours later, he was good to go in the air. Also, you know, we're attempting to make 200,000 QSOs on Bouvet. You know, Danny didn't make 200,000 altogether on all his the expeditions. You know, he would go make, you know, 500,000, 2,000 QSOs, and we'll go. If we go and do 2,000 QSOs, we'll never get the support that we require to get there. So, you know, if you look at the details, every time brought a different challenge, you know. So, but think about it. I mean, will be probably the most expensive DXpedition ever, and we already raised almost close to 85%, let's say, of the money that we need, and we still have 9 months to go. So that means that you know, most likely we'll achieve our goal. Every little bit helps, and people understand that. You know, not everybody can donate, you know, $5,000, but even $5 make a difference. There are 3 million operators in the world, so ham operators. So I'm sure we'll get there. We were very, positive and optimistic regarding our project. So
Yeah. Well, I think, the effort in the planning is absolutely incredible. And I've enjoyed listening to all of that. And, every success, I'm sure it'll be great, the expedition.
yeah, it's in the last couple of weeks, I had one of the antennas, one of the beams that goes to Bouvet. I had it on my backyard here, and I assemble it and disassemble it maybe 10 times already. And every time every iteration of it, I try to figure out a way to decrease the amount of time and tools that it will take to put the antenna together there. So by doing it multiple times, you get to the point where you're actually going to be able to put it together in about an hour and go on the air. And everybody in the team has these type of tasks. You instead of writing on, putting labels, you're actually color coding them and to say the red pipe goes to red pipe. I don't need to measure if it's 3 millimeters or 5 millimeters. The blue screw goes in the blue hole. I don't care that it's an M5 or M3, so that I don't have to look for the, M3 screw when the wind is blowing, 30 miles an hour. So it's exciting because you're basically playing with the same toys that you're playing as a ham operator. Sometimes becomes annoying. My wife comes back and says, "You took it down already again? You did that last week, like 2 times. How many times you gotta take that antenna down and put it up again?" So, but it's the expedition is nothing compared to all the other ones that I did so far. Even if you go some other that are, semi-remote, like Tokelau. I was there in Tokelau. Of course, you can't buy any tools or any parts if you forget something, but still, it's an island where you can find people, and they're all like, I don't have a wrench. Maybe I'll find a plier, so pair of pliers or something, But here, there's nobody there, just cold and wind and penguins. Actually, one of the things that I spent a lot of time researching on was finding a good pair of boots that will be resistant to the penguin feces. Because what happens is that's very acidic, and you're going to be spending a lot of time into that, penguin, feces, because that's where you land, and you have to move around, and that's probably a few inches high. And if you have regular boots made of leather, that gets impregnated. You can never get the smell out. And then you go in a tent and you can't sleep because the freak, everybody smells. So you have to have rubber boots that you can just wash off. There's no other way around it. But rubber boots are not warm, So again, a lot of research, and then these are the type of things that somebody or a scientist that lives at the South Pole doesn't get into. There are no penguins there, so it's a lot more challenging that I expected, but I'm enjoying it like everybody else in the team.
That's great.
Can I ask, how many hours a day are you guys going to operate for?
That's what I
24
was
hours. There's no stop.
Mm.
It's basically we have 13 operators and 13 stations. Like I said, it's expected that some of the operators that are not extremely busy, let's say I'm 10 meters SSB, it's probably not going to be extremely busy, but while I'm doing 10 meters SSB, I can do also at the same time FT8 on some other band, or let's say.
Sure.
So the stations are going to be, busy all the time. And if you're not busy resting or busy fixing antennas or busy, preparing food, then you should be busy operating. This is not a vacation. So the truth is, if we don't make 200,000 QSOs, we're not going to be able to raise enough money to pay for our expenses. So on top of the $20,000 that we each of us have to pay, we will have to add additional funds. So everybody in the team is aware of this, and we all want to be able to reach our goal of a minimum to 200,000 QSOs.
Cool. So I've got another one. I think it's my last one, actually.
I don't mind that. I mean, the main goal for us here is to tell people, about us and
Sure.
about the expeditions, what's involved, and because people ask me, okay, you go to Bouvet, how many flights do they have there a day? I mean, it makes me laugh, but at the same time, how would normal people know where Bouvet is, or that there's no landing strip there? I mean, think about it.
Absolutely.
So go ahead.
So those antennas, I mean, constructing an antenna in terms of how small you can break it down is a bit of a trade-off, right? Because every joint's a weakness. It's something else to put together and take down when you need to. So how small do those antennas go down to? I mean, they're like 6 feet long, 10 feet long, the smallest common denominator.
When the antennas were designed initially by the manufacturers, they were designed so they will be shippable, let's say, for lack of a better word. What that means is that they try to keep the length of the pieces no more than 1.8 or 2 meters, the max. Because when you go onto a plane, 1.8 meters is considered the maximum you can have. And then there's certain exceptions, like for ski equipment and stuff like that, that can be 2 meters in length. So this way you can take it with you. So now we're using antennas designed by the same manufacturers. So although they modify certain things to give it extra strength, maybe thicker screws or a thicker wall of the pipes, the components were kept the same length, because you don't want to change the specs of the antenna. So, also, right now, all these antennas that we will be taking to Bouvet, they're dispersed in different countries, 2 different operators. For example, me and Ken are in charge of the beam. David is in charge of 160-meter vertical. Mike is in charge, or Bill is in charge of the 30-meter vertical. So we all tested our own antenna that was given to us by the team leaders, and then we tested it, and then now we have to take this antenna and bring it to Oslo next week for the final assembling and testing of all components together. So because we still have to travel with them, we have to make it no larger than 2 meters. Once they get it to the container, they could be bigger, but then you take it from the container and you put it into the ship that takes you, to Marama. But the compartments, they are also designed so they take luggage from people that travel. So again, that's why it's 1.8 or 2 meters the most.
Sure. Thank you very much.
I think
No
it's
problem.
it's Jeff G1PJR, just to continue with this profile of antenna material. A funny thing happened to me.
Okay.
Okay. I obviously been playing around with antennas and aluminium tubing and whatever for, a number of years. And I was doing some decorating at home, and one of my windows has a width of something like 2.5 meters. And within that width, I'd got a roller blind, and I was going to change the roller blind. And I thought to myself, I'll keep that aluminium tube that the roller blind is wound around for use in the garden. Now, here's the interesting rub, is that when I actually took it to pieces, the roller was made from aluminium. It was a standard thickness, but within that circumference, it had like a square indent in it on either side. And the difference that made to the rigidity of that pole, I've still got it out in the workshop waiting to use it for some project. But the difference that just putting that indentation in either side of the pole, I can barely bend it at all compared to a standard tube. So I don't know whether you've come across anything like that yourself, but it's just one of those things that sort of crops up every now and again. And you think to yourself, good God, I'd never thought that would have made that much difference, but it does. And it's worth noting, I think. But that's it. I just mentioned it in passing because I thought it was quite interesting.
Yes, the actually, as a matter of fact, the booms for the beams that we're using, the booms, they are designed by the Innov antenna, British company. They are a square profile, and the same applies for the masts made by the Greek company Silcom. So they realize exactly what you said, that the square profile is better, gives better strength. That extra little edge, not by a lot, but that little edge is needed for cases like this, when the wind all of a sudden has a gust that, 60, 70, or even more miles an hour. So yes, I mean, the manufacturers have also computer simulation software. So the manufacturers would, run the numbers and say, okay, if I make this little change, will it be better? If I make this little change, will it improve by that much that these guys need on that particular environment? So yes, they did work with us for quite a few months until they came up with the perfect combination. And then we took the numbers and double checked it with a different scientist in a different country with, from a different company. And he ran the numbers just to double check that there are no errors. And then that's when we decided, okay, we'll go with this version. It's a lot of work to ensure that you just don't get to the island and get that crazy moment where you say, oops. You definitely got to avoid that. You only have one shot and you have to make it, work.
But I imagine there will be perhaps one or two little things that crop up that you think, oh God, I wish I'd sorted that out. But I found your presentation extremely interesting. I will go and have a look on your site and certainly make a contribution to it if that's possible. And thank you very much for your presentation. It's been really, really interesting. And I wish you all the best as a team. And we'll certainly try to get in touch with you when you eventually get there.
Well, definitely. We just watch, our website is the best place to look at the news. We also have a Facebook page. We place there. We'll also have, pilots around the world, and they will gather the information input from hams, and we'll make sure that we're gonna put in the log as many people as possible. That's what we go there to, just work people. There's no other reasons we do all this effort. So yes, indeed, when you have the chance, take a look at our website, and if you're inclined to do so, please help. It's your support is definitely needed, and nothing like this could happen without our support, without the support of the ham community. And keep in mind that the operator is already donating, let's say, spending close to $25,000 to get to Bouvet from their own pockets, because it's $20,000 to get there, to join the team, but then you need to fly to Norway to get everything ready, and then you have to fly again, and equipment, the clothing is expensive for this polar areas and so forth. In addition, we all go away from home for 45 days. That means we're not going to go to work. We're going to be away from families and other obligations and so forth. So there's definitely a large effort from the team side. So every little bit counts.
I've got another just a quick query, really.
Sure.
When you're actually, let's make the assumption that you've got yourselves up and running. The question that I'd like to ask is, will you be using something like satellite phone or something like that to actually get back to update the website when you're of operations, how it's going? whilst you're there? Because I can imagine that, you know, although you are operating a communication system whilst you're down there, you're going to perhaps need more direct, such as satellite phone or something like that, feedback to update the website with progress.
All right, so basically, that's a good question. So what happens is we'll have some satellite phones for emergency communication. They will be sponsored to us by ICOM. These satellite phones will be for talking so that we can communicate in case of emergencies.
Yep.
We'll also use those to communicate with the pilots and tell them, hey, this and that. They will tell us. ICOM will give us the ability for unlimited talk. Their devices are, you know, very well versed for this.
Yeah.
So yes, we'll be in contact with the pilots and with our families, and we'll be able to, but we will not have probably an internet connection to send pictures.
Right.
The updates will be just text. We were hoping that Starlink, the new startup that Mr. Bezos, or not Bezos, the owner of Tesla, is currently working on. So it's Starlink allows high-speed internet over satellite, which is unknown to mankind up to his company, up to when, you know, recently. Unfortunately, there's no coverage where the Bouvet area is because it's the shipping lanes are far away. So there's nobody there. There's no point for them to cover that area. It will happen. They will said it will definitely happen, but it's not a priority. We're still hoping that's going to be possible, but you know, with the events happening now in Europe, they're diverted a lot of their resources to other more humanitarian objectives, let's say. So although we're still hoping, most likely will not have a satellite coverage from his company available over Bouvet, so that means no internet access. But like I said, ICOM through their devices will provide the telephone sort of equipment that allows us to make calls and keep in touch with the, you know.
And will you be taking will you be documenting on film your expedition? Have you got someone specifically, let's say, that's going to take that on board? And you know, I'd love to be able to see a TV program about it or documentary about it. You know, these are the guys down there. This is what they were up to. This is what they had to contend with. That would be fantastic. So I rather hope that you've got someone down there that's handy with a camera.
Yes, one of our team members is actually an expert on helping scientific expeditions going to difficult areas and polar areas, and he's one of our team members. He will be in charge of helping us land on Bouvet, you know, all the intricacies and difficulties, you know, that's related to that. And in addition, he, among other tasks that he has, he will be bringing a drone and will take drone pictures and videos and lots of pictures from the island. The Norwegian Polar Institute also asked us to take lots of pictures and document the different areas that you know, where we'll be landing and where we'll be staying, you know, for scientific and approaches and whatever. So obviously, all that video input, we will definitely have a movie, you know, or a nice movie, like all the large DXpeditions have at the end. You know, you want to document this endeavor that took a lot of effort and resources to get together. And obviously, very few people get the chance to participate in such the expedition. And of course, if you're one of those avid DXers, you'll say, gosh, I would love to know how that looks like. I would like to know how they do it. How did, you know, that guy, I made a contact with those people. It's so exciting. I really want to see, you know, how, you know, how they did it and how it looks like there. So of course, that's always happening after each of the expedition.
So Adrian, just before you, because I'm very conscious of the time and the fact that you need to do some work on your antennas, but I was just curious to see if you would be prepared to return after the expedition and actually give us a bit of feedback to what your personal experience was, and if it met your anticipation. What I mean by that is, so that obviously all the planning and preparation, I'd be highly interested in you returning and telling us what worked, what didn't work, how you managed to overcome any problems as they developed. I'd be quite interested in hearing that.
Yes, obviously we're going to be busy making a lot of presentations after our return. First of all, to thank all our, the clubs and the sponsors and the people that actually put, helped us and supported us. And of course, we did this for the ham community. It will be a pleasure to do so. We'll be doing presentations at
Cool.
hamventions and, for clubs as yourselves, it's as a thank you to all the people that actually supported us and helped us achieve our goals. Of course, it's like you said, one of the things people be interested in is to see the contrast, let's say, for lack of a better word, between how you prepared and what the end result was.
Expectations and results.
Exactly. Was there anything that you totally forgot about or didn't consider, didn't have a clue, or things the opposite, where you prepare so much for this type of stuff, but in the end there was just that, or situations like that? Of course, that's actually
something as simple as, how much loo paper does one take? I mean, it's just, and the basic fundamental things that, we've got all these guys there for that period of time. How do we actually clean up after we've gone? What are we going to do with all that, human waste? How are we going to transport it? I mean, they're all things that you need to consider. And although it's basic, it's an essential part of the expedition, isn't it? That
Yeah, that's true. As a matter of fact, the person that's in charge for the toilet and the figuring out the best approach on taking the human waste from the island and all that, it's actually one of the most complex tasks. He's been working on it for quite a while, and there are quite a few challenges. Of course, we contacted different experts and people that got into similar situations, so we have a solution. And actually our one of our team leaders, Ken, is last weekend was in a hiking trip with his wife, and he tested one of the portable toilets to see if it makes sense, because it all looks good on paper, all it looks good on the advertising brochure, they're all colorful and nice, but when you go out in the field and you try it and you're like, man, if the wind is blowing from there, you can't sit on this thing, or whatever. Stuff like that.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yes.
I think the other thing worth mentioning is, and I've seen this before with the ham radio network, is that don't please be despondent about the fact that there's only 7 participants tonight, because I know for a fact that when this is recorded and then put on for viewing on the website, the ham radio network, that it's going to get probably loads and loads of views, and I feel certain that everybody that actually does watch this is going to be quite enthused with it, and is going to be rooting for you for a successful trip.
Well, yeah, that doesn't matter if it's one person or 1,000. It's I am glad to answer any questions and keep people in the know what exactly is needed for us to be successful, and there's no other way than to do these presentations. So like you said, once they are on the web, then people can, and we will look at them. And the good thing about that is they can look at them today or 2 years from now, or
Yes.
right
yeah.
before the expeditions, people hear, oh, these people just left. I don't know anything about that. And they will play, my presentation from 6 months before or so. And they're like, oh, look at that. That's what they're doing. I gotta look it up. I gotta be here hunting.
Mm. I wish I would go with you, to be honest.
Is there any final questions? Because obviously I need to think about wrapping it up. So is there any final questions from anybody for Adrian?
I've had my fair share of things. Thank you very much, Adrian. I hope it goes well, and look forward to seeing the results. And thanks for taking the time to come and talk to us and answer our questions. Very much appreciated.
Yes, I second that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. And I guess 73 to everyone, and hope to work you from Bouvet.
Look forward to it. Look forward to seeing the beard as well.
Yes.
All right. Take care.
Thanks,
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank
Thank
you
you very
so
much.
much.
Keep
Cheers.
safe.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.